of all the planning and preparation, from the reception to the food to the cake and, of course, the dress. But even though it's exciting to plan for the wedding day, it's much more important to plan for a lifetime with each other in marriage. You guys just read those crazy vows, and nobody actually would say those things, right? But isn't it possible that some people go into marriage maybe not knowing the commitment that they're entering into? We've been learning about sacraments and the amazing graces that flow from them. So today, we're going to talk about what it really means when we say I do.
Grandma and Grandpa were married for more than 60 years. Their names were Joseph and Mary, and they had 10 kids. They had a beautiful marriage. They would flirt with each other constantly. I grew up watching this. I remember as a boy seeing my grandpa come up to my grandma in the kitchen. He kind of whap and he hits her in the thigh. And he says, "Hi, my name's Joe." And she looks at him and she's like, "Huh, I know." I'm like, "Oh, they're 100 and they're flirting. I love it." And when she passed away 2 years ago, I was there at the funeral right by the side of my grandpa. And just before they closed the casket, he stood beside me, and he's real weak, hip and knee replacements, and he leans over the casket, and he's shaking, and he kind of leans over, he just gives her a kiss on the nose, and he said, "Bye, babe." And I saw that, and I just said, that's it. That's what I want. I want a love that's stronger than death. But how do we get there from here? How do we get a marriage like that? We got to begin by understanding what marriage is. According to the church, the marriage is a total gift of yourself. Look at the wedding vows. You promise that this love that you're giving is a free love. It is a total love. You hold nothing back from one another. It is a faithful love, not just with your body, but even with your imagination and your heart. And it's a fruitful love that's open to the gift of life. And if you think about this, this is not an imposition of the church onto us. This is the very cry of our hearts for authentic human love. So if that's the essence of marriage, what's the purpose of marriage? The purpose of marriage is for the procreation and the education of our children. That's where we get the word matrimony from, the duty of the mother. So part of the purpose of marriage is for the raising of children. The other purpose of marriage is for the mutual perfection and sanctification of the spouses. Because when you get married, your faults rise to the surface like oil and water, so that you can be sanctified and grow in holiness. Now, if you think that the purpose of marriage is your personal happiness, well, I hope your marriage is happy, but honestly, that's not the purpose. Because if you think that that's the purpose, and it starts getting rough and tough and difficult, and all your faults come to the surface, well, that's when a lot of people bail out. But this is not God's plan for authentic human love. It's going to require us to die to ourselves. I remember on our wedding day, there's a little boy sitting in the back of the church, and he's soaking in all the ceremony and liturgy. And he says to his dad, "Now, Dad, why is Kristalina there, my wife? Why is she wearing all white?" And he said, "Oh, because today is the happiest day of her life, and she's just radiant." The kid said, "Okay." Well, then Dad, he said, "How come Jason's wearing all black?" And, he kind of had a laugh, but there's something to this, that the black often in liturgy means death. That we need to die to ourselves for the love of our beloved. We've got to image Christ's love for his church. This is out of St. Paul's writing in Ephesians 5. He said, "A man shall leave his father and his mother, cleave to his wife, and the two of them shall become one flesh." We're supposed to be an image of Christ's love for the church. You're probably familiar with the custom where the bride sits down, the whole bridal party comes around her, the groom kneels down in front of her, and he kind of starts to pull up her dress, and he pulls down off her leg the garter, which is a fabric around her thigh, and then he just throws it to a bunch of slobbering single guys who fight over it. Now, he didn't think that'd be the best way to introduce his bride to the family. So what he did is he had his bride sit down, and the whole wedding party came around. And he kneeled down in front of her, and then he pulled off her shoe, and then he pulled up a pitcher of water with a bowl, and he washed her feet in front of everybody, as Christ washed the feet of his bride, the church, on the night before he gave his life for her on the cross. And this groom was not putting on a show. This is literally how he thought his bride deserved to be served, as Christ loved the church. Now you might think, well, that's great, Jason, but I'm sorry, that is not the image I see of marriage at home. Husbands and wives dying to themselves for love of one another. And honestly, a broken image of marriage might be all that you've ever seen at home. But I promise you, in the beginning, it was not so. When God created Adam and Eve, their bodies, their naked bodies, were a sign of an invitation to the other to love them in a way that was free, total, faithful, and life-giving. And through this love, to become a visible image of God's love itself on earth. And this is not imposing religion on sex and marriage. This is God's original plan. We're made in the image and likeness of a God who is love. So if you've ever wondered why you just long for love, it's because you're made in the image and likeness of God, and God is love, and nothing less will satisfy you. Lust will never satisfy you. All the pleasures of the world, nothing will satisfy you as much as authentic human sacrificial love. So by the end of this program, we hope to be able to show you how you can save your marriage before even meeting your spouse. Now, marriage is supposed to be a sign of God's love for us, and you can be sure the devil's going to do everything he can to attack this sign. And look at it, marriage is under attack. I mean, from the inside with divorce and infidelity and pornography. It's on attack from the outside. And you look at all the objections we're hearing today. I mean, one of the most common ones is, well, isn't marriage just a piece of paper? And well, if marriage is just a piece of paper, consider this. People who get married, they live longer, they earn more money, they're happier, they have lower rates of depression, they have lower rates of domestic violence, alcoholism, they have higher rates of sexual satisfaction. Their kids are more likely to do better in school, graduate college, and have lasting marriages. Their kids are less likely to do drugs, get involved in crime, suffer emotional illness, attempt suicide, and on and on and on. So if marriage is just a piece of paper, that is an awesome piece of paper. I want that piece of paper. It's not just a piece of paper. Marriage is the cornerstone of human civilization. The fact is that as the marriage goes, so goes the family, and as the family goes, so goes the entire world. And some people would say, well, I don't get it. I mean, can't I just live with my boyfriend, live with my girlfriend, and pretty much get the same benefits? What's interesting is people who cohabit, who live together without actual marriage, actually have the opposite benefits. They have higher rates of divorce, higher rates of infidelity, higher rates of abuse. It doesn't pan out. So if that's the case with cohabiting relationships, why would we really even desire it to begin with? I mean, it's not really something people want to do in the end. I mean, if you think about people who get married, you'll see cars driving on the freeway with shaving cream and shoe polish and hands behind the car saying, hey, we just got married, honk for us or wave at us. You never see cars driving down the freeway with a sign that says just cohabited, just shacked up, just started living together. The enthusiasm has never really been there. So why are people doing this? Because it's an arrangement that happens mostly, I think, because of fear. A lot of people have been raised in homes that were divorced and were kind of afraid to get married because you want to kind of dip your toe in the water and kind of see if we're going to be compatible. But the fact is, successful marriages are not the result of perfect compatibility. It's about learning how to love and forgive the imperfect person that you've chosen to marry. And the very idea of test driving marriage is impossible. You can't test drive something that by its very nature is permanent. And especially girls, I mean, think about it. You go on one date with a boy and he's a jerk. Okay, breaking up's easy, one date. Okay, now date a guy for 6 months and break up. All right, that's harder. But now you sleep with the guy. Now you move in with him, and then it dawns on you that he's not the right one for you. Do you know how hard it is to let go when you've given away so much? Girls don't want to. They want to stay put, fix the guy, but the relationship is done before it begins. He doesn't change for the better. She typically changes for the worst. And so if marriage and the union of a man and a woman are supposed to be a sign of God's love for us, what is cohabitation a sign of? That God's in this relationship until it doesn't pan out and then he's got an exit? This isn't God's love for us. Another way that marriage is under attack today is this idea that anybody can marry anybody. And when people in the world hear that the church does not endorse same-sex marriage, you get a lot of comments like, well, the church hates gays and the church is bigoted against gays. But look, I don't think that a brother should be allowed to marry his sister. I don't believe that one man is allowed to marry two women. Does that mean that I'm opposed to siblings and I'm bigoted against siblings? No, it's just that I believe that God is the one who defined marriage as one man and one woman. And the church doesn't even have the authority to redefine that. Because if we do, then anybody can say who gets married. Well, a man can marry a man. Well, then how come one woman can't marry two men? The fact is, if everybody gets to create their own definition of marriage, then we need to take God's idea of it and put it off to the side. And some people object, say, look, I'm just opposed to legislating morality. Well, think about that statement. How much of legislation is based on morality? I mean, burglary, perjury, illegal drugs, rape, it's all based on morality, why you can't perform these acts. And in the end, those who do have same-sex attractions are called to love. And the fact that the church teaches that they're not called to get married does not invalidate the fact that they're called to love. And later on in the program, we'll discuss how God can fulfill their desires for authentic human love. Perhaps the biggest way that marriage is under attack today is how many divorces that there are. What do they say? There's like a 50% divorce rate. In fact, there's a store in Los Angeles, a jewelry store that actually rents wedding rings. I mean, how bad is this going to get? But Christ is the one who said that if a man marries a woman and he divorces her and marries another, he commits adultery, except if that marriage was unlawful. Now, what Christ is getting at there is some things that appear to be marriages are not valid unions. And the church's teachings on annulments is an investigation that what looked like a marriage at the beginning was never a valid one to begin with. But the fact holds true that what God has joined, nobody must separate. And this isn't the church imposing her laws on us. Isn't this the longing of the human heart, that we want love to last forever? And when we come back, we're going to discuss how you can save your marriage before you even meet your spouse. When you think of marriage preparation, what comes to mind? For most people, it's the 6 months before the big wedding day, or trying out the tux and the dress. But the Catholic Church teaches that if that's when marriage preparation is starting, it's starting way too late. That's just what's called immediate marriage preparation. There's also proximate and remote, meaning you need to be preparing for your marriage when you're in high school, even when you're in grade school. So how are you supposed to do this as a high school student getting ready for a marriage that might not take place for another 10 years? Your wedding vows and promises are that your love is going to be free, total, faithful, and fruitful. How can you practice those things now as a single person? Well, let's break them down. How do you practice a love that's free? And the freedom that I'm talking about is not free to do whatever you want. It's a freedom from internal constraints, meaning I'm not addicted to things. I'm free to love because I'm not so tied into lust that I can't even say no to my sexual temptations. Freedom also from, let's say, being addicted to relationships, where I can't even stand on my own 2 feet as an independent and happy person. Because the fact is, if you can't be happily single, then you're not going to be fully happy within a relationship. I met one girl who told me, I can't break up with my boyfriend. He told me that if I ever dumped him, that he would die without me. Now, this is not a relationship, okay? That's a hostage situation. Because if he would die without you, he doesn't need a girlfriend, he needs a therapist, okay? This is a lack of authentic freedom. You need to be free to find yourself before you find your soulmate. Free to take some time away from the whole dating game. And this is huge, to not enter a relationship looking for the love that only God can give to us. Because if we do that, then we make an idol out of the relationship. And all idols are meant to be broken. And so we need to practice giving a love that is truly free. Secondly, part of the vow that your love needs to be total. How to practice total love is an unconditional love. You oftentimes hear people saying, look, I love you, I'm just not in love with you anymore. It's like, look, you never loved me to begin with. You loved the feelings that you got from being around them. And we need to be able to graduate beyond the attachment of how the other person makes us feel to the attachment of loving who this person is as a person. And if we can practice doing that as a single person, we'll be more ready to love somebody totally within the sacrament of marriage. And the third part of the wedding vows that we make is that our love is faithful. And to understand, by practicing chastity and purity now, you're actually training yourself in faithfulness. Because if you're going to get married, then one day you're going to promise somebody, I'm going to love you and I'm going to honor you all of the days of my life. Well, realize today is the day of your life. And by practicing chastity now, you're actually learning the virtues that are going to hold a marriage together. And it pays off in the end. It really does. I saw this magazine that had a study on over 2,000 married couples. And it said chastity before marriage may have its uses after all. Well, who knew? They surveyed 2,035 married couples and found that the couples who waited until after they were married to have sex had better communication, better relationship satisfaction, better sexual quality in the relationship, and a more perceived stability in the relationship. And so the fact is, it does pay off. And so we've got to train ourselves in this faithfulness. And we need to be able to stay away from those things that teach us the opposite of faithfulness. Mostly things like pornography, which basically just gets you addicted to mental adultery. Because if we can cut these things out, then we're going to realize that fidelity is not just what I do with my body. Fidelity is what I do with my heart, with my eyes, and with my entire imagination. And if I can grow in that kind of faithfulness, then I'll be well prepared for the day of my wedding. And the last part of the 4 wedding vows and promises is that your love will be fruitful. So how do you practice that? How do you practice having kids before you get married? Well, one, to realize the connection between life and love. Making love should mean making life. And if you can understand this, then realize that by practicing abstinence now, you might not ever thought about this, that you're actually loving your children before you even have them, by not conceiving them before you're ready to love them. And so by understanding that connection between life and love that God has designed, you're preparing yourself for that vow of your marriage that you're going to make one day. So if you've taken the time as a single person now to practice a love that's free, that's total, that's faithful, and that's fruitful, you'll be well prepared for your wedding day. Because you don't get the virtues needed to hold a marriage together by getting a wedding ring on your hand. You get this through years of sacrifice. The time to begin is now. Set your standards high for who you hope to find as a future husband or wife. And it's not enough to sit back and imagine who that ideal spouse is. Instead of just sitting around doing that, it's more important that you become the kind of person that you hope to marry. And if you do this, I really believe that you're going to be saving your marriage before you even meet your spouse.
We've been talking about the sacraments and how they give us life-giving graces that help us on our journey. All but one, which we haven't discussed yet, holy orders. And this one has a special place because Without it, we wouldn't have the other sacraments. Today, we're going to be discovering the awesome gift and power of the priesthood. And we'll also be discussing discernment and where God may be calling you.
No person is here on earth by accident. This is something we may hear over and over again, but there's a very important reason why. First, it's true. Second, if it is true, then we are here for a purpose. This purpose might be to accomplish a certain task, but it for sure is to become a certain kind of person. What I mean is this: every person has a destiny, not like fate, but more like destination. You are on this earth in order to get to this destination, and the reality is, if I miss out on this destination, my life is a failure. No matter how incredible I may be at this or that, no matter how much success or fame I have, if I miss out on this destination, I am missing out on the very reason why I am alive. God wants you to be happy. Pope Benedict XVI once said, "Each one of us is the result of a direct thought of God. Each one of us is willed. Each one of us is loved." What that means is that your life is on purpose. And your life, in order to be lived on purpose, is that you have a vocation, you have a call. And your primary vocation is to love. To become a gift of yourself for someone else. To be able to become a gift of yourself for the church. To become a gift of yourself for God. You know, you're made to be a saint. You're made to actually become the kind of person who, by God's grace, is able to step right into heaven. And out of all the tragedies that a person can experience in their life, all the sorrow and all the heartbreak and all the terrible things that can happen to a person, there's a man named Charles Pegwee who once said, there's only one real tragedy in life, and that is to not have been a saint. Now, for many of you, that call to be a saint, that call to love, is going to take the form of being called to the vocation of marriage. Now, marriage is the prefigurement of God's love in heaven, here on earth. So as husband loves his wife and lays down his life for her, and as a wife loves her husband and lays down her life for him, they become a witness to God's love. It's a prefigurement of that love. But some of you are going to be called to witness the vocation to the holy orders. That call is extremely powerful because it's a call to truly live that consecration, total consecration to God, while here on earth. Many of you